My dear viewers, beginning today is the official Alliteration Gaming Patreon and channel members. Throughout my Patreon, we've got quite a few tiers you can check out in order to gain special perks and even commission videos that you'd like to see me upload onto the channel. Every tier includes a shout out on my supporter card at the beginning of all of my videos, along with the benefits of the tier itself. Following that, you can now also join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on the YouTube side of things. Pledging your subscription here as a member of the channel is going to grant you the same shout out on my supporter card as all the Patreon tiers do, as well as access to the members only channel on my Discord. You'll gain a member badge that will level up as you stay subscribed and access to my exclusive emotes when I stream on YouTube. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I'm going to have the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as well as the link to my Discord should you want to join that as well. And if you want to become a channel member, the big beautiful join button is front and center on my homepage right here. And if you do decide to support the channel in any way whatsoever, know that I am unimaginably grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with even more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Additionally, it's time for the return of the referral code. If you're new here and you're just getting into the game, you've got to make an account on the Universe's gaming network. When you're signing up, you can use my exclusive referral code Alliteration to let Jasco know that I brought you on board, which directly supports me and my work. Having an account on the UGN site is going to allow you to sign up for tournaments, participate in events, locate stores that support the game near you, and much more. Playing in events and or mailing in pack wrappers is actually going to accrue loyalty points onto your account, which you'll then be able to redeem for exclusive promo cards in the mail for absolutely free. An account on here is an integral part of playing this game, so make sure you sign up and you use my code Alliteration to help me continue doing what I love. I would really appreciate the support. You guys absolutely killed it on the last one with all of the signups, and I am really excited to run it back with you all. Now, let's get on to the video. Good evening, my dear viewers, and welcome to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and we're rocking another character spotlight this evening. This time, Willie T is paying it forward on the Patreon to talk about his favorite version of our main man protagonist, Izuku Midoriya 2. Midoriya 2 is a 6 hand size character with a beefy 29 health and the earth, good, and life symbols. Being that this is his second form in the card game, his aggression is still a little unwieldy, but much more refined than his original incarnation. To reflect that, this Midoriya can trade exactly one card in his hand for a single speed and a big 3 damage, as long as it's a punch attack, of course. This is a very positive exchange. The 1 speed is nothing to scoff at, but the damage is truly where it's at. The ability to chain punch after punch and really force blocks from your rival to back them into a corner is the best way to use this high damage pressure, and it'll really make your rival critically think about when they can actually afford to sell out and stop your punches. Being able to carefully trade 1 finger or 1 card in your hand for individual bursts of damage rather than losing the use of your whole hand of cards makes Midoriya a very rewarding, aggressive character for the thinking man. Speaking of thinking, this kid's got a very wicked response that says once you check a foundation that's already in your stage, you can build it right in. This ability is what really lets Midoriya get so ahead on resources and find the ramp that he needs to surpass his rivals. Building in free foundations is obviously quite powerful, but taking full advantage of this response is going to require some careful decision making and deck building. It is only once per turn, so if you check a copy of something not quite so powerful in your stage, you have to decide if it's worth taking the weaker foundation right now or wait for a more opportune check but risk not finding another one for the rest of the turn that you can build in. The nature of this response also means that you really want to lean more towards having play sets of foundations in your deck rather than a ton of 1 or 2 of tech pieces that some decks might have. You want to maximize the chances of making sure that you get that extra build every turn. Midoriya is an absolute little powerhouse of a character that really rewards good decision making and careful use of your resources at all stages of the game. With Izuku Midoriya 2, you're going to be able to weaponize your hand cards like no other to barrage the rival with some crazy series of punches and amass a very powerful, very wide stage quicker than the eye can see. Alright guys, I hope that y'all are ready to talk about punches. The punch package is one of the most solid, stable, and well-rounded attack archetypes in the entire game. They really do have an attack for every situation, and it's that consistency that we can really come to rely on when playing a character that asks for them. Having both the good and earth symbols gives us access to all of our very own Midoriya attacks, as well as extending to All Might and Kirishima's kits. The life symbol will look a little weak over the course of these without having access to those, but we can still put the pressure on with our own Deku attacks. The first order of business is punches that generate resources. One of the best things about slinging fists in this game is we get access to a ton of cards that draw cards and ready our foundations. If you're the almighty back alley haymaker, you're of course going to get the option of doing either of these every single time. Drawing cards is always fantastic, but it's even better in a character that wants to be able to discard them readily, so attacks like the brand new Valiant Assault or some good old strings of future charges can really keep our hand healthy and make sure that our punches stay pumped up. Another way to help our resource game is by including cards like Hardened Jab and Hardened Chop, which can get rid of our committed foundations to bring in new ready ones, thus ensuring that we can continue to string along our attack chains without having to commit resources to them. It's moves like these that really keep our lines safe and risk-free while also maintaining a nice level of card advantage over our rival and through our own discard abilities. Now let's get to the most fun part about the punch package, and that's stats. This is where we're really going to talk about the meat of this lineup and how it closes games. Punches are home to some of the most consistent damage pumps possible. And when you combine those with Midoriya able to put 3 more damage on, almost anything can be a kill card. Texas Smash is the mother of all damage pump, representing 11 damage across 2 attacks as a 4 difficulty move is insane. And while it often isn't the card that closes the game out, it's the one that's going to eat up all your rivals' defensive resources with its own threatening damage and push your other attacks to find lethal. Setup Strike and Hardened Uppercut both represent even more stat gains on both sides of the equation, and both play very nicely into our strings. Rapid Punches and Hardened Barrage are a match made in heaven when it comes to tons of free speed and damage. And when raw stats just don't quite do the trick, we can even rely on things like Heroic Strike and Wind Up Punch to commit down massive parts of our rival's board, threaten them, and render them unable to deal with the even stronger follow-up threats. The last thing I want to highlight is just how much utility your punches can bring. Your rival enhancing on you too much? Here's a Flash Punch. Eraserhead got you down? Side in some Hardened Pummels. Need to up your poke game? Punches even have a throw. Final Smash is a monster of a card to set up checks and draws, but is even sweeter in Midoriya 2, where you can set up checking a foundation duplicate that you'd like to respond and build in. And if you plan on eventually emptying your hand in the tried and true Deku fashion, full Cowling 5% is an amazing attack that can replenish your whole hand. Speaking of replenishing cards, if you find yourself having trouble finding enough attacks to close games out, you can even use things like Relentless Barrage or Tetsu Thrashing to guarantee attack strings as they pick up copies of themselves. Thrashing is especially easy to take advantage of in our character with how much we can always control our hand size. Speaking of controlling our hand size, let's start talking about those foundations. With how important keeping our hand filled up enough to afford all the discarding that we want to be doing, it is imperative our stage is just as apt at doing that as our attacks are. Passing the Torch is the quintessential draw power card, especially when we're going to be able to go to none in hand at our leisure. Midoriya's very own new training method and Any Means Necessary are amazing at acquiring us new cards, either by grabbing extra foundations or turning our enhance completely free. There are a myriad of other ways we can keep our hand filled, either through some offhand methods like Childhood Friends or Destined, or even more on-demand draw power like Chivalrous Competitor and Excited for Blood. Now, something to be wary of when it comes to Midoriya 2 is our flip costs. Flipping a foundation means we're no longer able to build extra copies of it, so sometimes it's worth thinking about getting 2 of them out before you really start flipping anything and losing your targets. Following the same exact pattern as when we were talking about our attacks, let's talk about more stats on our foundations. Midoriya's got access to a plethora of cards that really ensure our attacks are going to stay absolutely massive and just as unblockable. Given how much innate damage our character and our attacks increase together, our stage is really where where our speed increases are going to come in. Note taking, snack time, and one with nature are all incredibly efficient and making our attacks very tough to block. It might seem like a lot of discarding with some of these, but that's why we've got tons of draw power inside our deck to make sure that we can always afford to commit those resources and ensure that our moves land. That's even more reason as well to put things like Tight-Lipped and Self-Sacrifice inside of our decks, as they weaponize our stage, giving us even more stats on a different cost basis than our hand. We can even find discard synergy in some of these cards with One with Nature and Public Support's responses triggering off of our Midoriya discard. Lastly, let's talk about some holes in our game plan that our foundations can patch up. One of the things the Good and Life symbol have struggled with in the past is being able to interact with the rival's board and their answers to us. When we are a deck that wants to invest heavy resources into beefing our moves up, we really don't want them to be messed with. Earth, of course, always comes well equipped with things like Apathetic to flip down the rival's pesky cards, but under our other symbols we can utilize new cards like Lost in Thought and To the Rescue to target anything on our rival's board and take it out of the equation, for a hefty price that is. Things like Male Bonding and Manly Passionate Guy can really up our resource game and ramp our build even more to afford things like those remove costs, and cards like Advice for Winners and Pull No Punches really help us cheat our checks and our progressive difficulty just a little bit so that our attack lines aren't the most honest ones around. When it comes to assets, Midoriya does have some solid tech pieces to pick from. While we should be a little wary of green and blue cards hurting the consistency of our foundation build response, we do have some strong options that can really make it worthwhile. Trace Sheet Cape is great at unflipping our foundations so that we can once again make them viable targets for our response, and Deku's Notebook is a very sneaky card that can make your rival really sweat trying to play around. We just talked about how important interacting with our rival's board is. Well, Young Heroes lets us commit down the most important defensive piece that they have every single turn. Our action choices are not bad either. Overflowing Power is pretty much always online with how much damage that we get to pump, and Flex Your Might is really good at putting some serious pressure on their board. And while our character is already great at turning cards in hand into more stats, the equations that we get from Sugar Rush Power Up and Season the Advantage help skewer us a little more towards speed that our deck wants, as well as some added control over our rival's board. That's going to conclude our showcase today on Izuku Midoriya 2. Thanks again to Willie T for commissioning this video, and if you want an experience just like this, you can check out my Patreon link down below in the description and in the pinned comments. You can select your own character for me to spotlight, some gameplay for me to commentate, or even build a deck one-on-one with me. Of course though, if you just made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate that, and if you learned anything from it or just enjoyed it, I would love some positive feedback down below, and if you hit the like button as well, that would mean a lot towards supporting the channel. That's all the time I've got for today though. Thanks again for watching, and I hope I can see you in the next one.